Welcome to the Real Estate Women's Podcast. Thanks for pulling up a chair to our roundtable discussion. Here, we'll teach you how you can create a stream of passive income through multifamily investing, and we'll help you to shift your mindset so you can start living the life you really want to be living by design today.
Hello, guys. We are the Real Estate Women. I'm Tamara.
I'm Crystal.
I'm Candy.
And I'm Colleen, and welcome to the Passive Investing Podcast. In today's episode, we will be talking about how investing in multifamily real estate can be for everyone, whether you take an active or a passive role in investing, or maybe even both. Ed Modzel is here with us today to help shed some light on the pros and cons and differences of both active and passive investing.
Yes. So Ed, he's really, there's no better option for that. And a little bit more about Ed. He is a commercial real estate entrepreneur specializing in multifamily real estate syndications. He served in the U.S. Navy for 6 years. So thank you, Ed, for your service. We appreciate that very much. He spent most of his life as the chief engineer of a 10-time Emmy award-winning TV show in New York and retired from all of that in 2015. Now he's a general partner and key principal on a $137 million multifamily real estate portfolio all across the Southeast, Midwest, and Texas. And Ed also does run a real estate. He is a real estate coach. He hosts a meetup and has an awesome local meetup as well. Thanks for joining us, Ed. We appreciate you coming here to share some of your wisdom and experience with us.
Thanks for asking me.
Yeah. So if you want, we'll kind of roll right into it. So you retired from your W-2 in 2015, right?
Yes.
So what was it that kind of made you get into real estate investing? Did you start that while you were working, or did that kind of start after?
Yeah, I did it part-time over many years. I got into it in 1980 with a 5-family, and then I went the wrong direction. I like to say I went 5, 3, 2, 1, and did a lot of ones, and did that for like 35 years. I did everything about it, and as the family grew and the job grew and things kind of took over, it had some ebbs and flows and, highs and lows. And so I did that. I had probably maybe 20 different tenants, did that over the years. And then in 2015, I said, I just turned 60, and I said, I don't have enough money to really retire comfortably in the United States, maybe in some third world country, but I'd rather do it here. And so I said, I'm gonna get back into real estate, but full time, and that's what I did.
Okay. Nice. So you really started a lot more full force after you retired, which is that's awesome. That's good to know. I feel like a lot of people that I spoke to, at least, they feel like, oh man, this age, I have a family, I don't have time. I'm stuck in this job. I'm stuck doing that. I think it's really good to mention that there's no point in your life that's like a good time to start. You can really start at any time that's right for you. So that's funny. You quit one job and started another. So did you start mostly?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. In the television business, I really enjoyed my job. I loved it. I mean, I got to meet like a lot of really interesting people, because I worked for, VH1 and MTV. And so it was a blast. So when I left, I got into house flipping, which I never really did house flipping. I did kind of just like I'd renovate, and I guess kind of the Burr method without the last R. I never actually refinanced them. But so I did flipping, and I live on Long Island, New York, and it's very competitive. Prices are much higher than other places. And these are all my excuses, of course. I only did like 5 houses in a year and 3 quarters. And I went from this very cool job that I love to, I liked the house flipping at first, but the novelty wore off real quick when you're at
Wow.
Home Depot for the fifth time in that same day, picking up supplies for your contractors and whatnot. Now, I know you could do it better than that. Um, but during that time, would go to the local RIAs and such like that, and I found out about multifamily, and you would think I would know about that from being in the business for like 35 years or whatever. And but me, like everybody else, I think out there, my mindset was that I can't buy a 200 unit apartment. That's for big companies, that do that. Until I found out, how you do it. And so I got involved, during that time in two limited partnerships, and then I got the bug, and I said to my wife, I'm going to get into this actively full time. And that's what I did. I made a transition, a hard transition, never did another single family. And that was over 5 years ago. And I'm now, like raising capital for my 25th syndication.
Wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So
I got a
Ed,
lot of time to make up for,
You're
That's
on a roll.
awesome.
That's a lot. That's averages to five a year in 5 years. That's awesome.
so Ed, you said you went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 when you started getting into it, and then you went to meetup. So can you describe why did you go in that direction? And then obviously you learned more about multifamily. Can you touch on how you did that pivot a little bit more?
Okay, so I I did kind of like what I knew, and that's you buy a duplex, a fourplex, a single. You fix it up, you rent it out. I did the low hanging fruit or whatever you want to call it. So I did that. For like 35 years part time and just kept doing it. And now the pivot, what is it that you're asking exactly?
Well, when you said five, you had there were 5 units in the building that you
Oh
did,
yeah, the first property I bought was a 5 family, 5 unit. Yeah.
and what made you? Was it just because of pricing to buy the next one because you didn't refinance to buy? Is why you started to go down in the number of units?
Um, Yeah, that's a good question. The 5 unit, I didn't know it at the time, but so there are classes of properties.
Hmm.
Uh, Class A is like a brand new building with all the bells and whistles, gyms, and theaters and swimming pools and all that. Then you got B, that's maybe 10 years older or 15 years older. Then you got C. Most of us invest in C and B properties. Well, my first one was a D property, as in dog,
Wow.
and
Okay.
and it was a little further away from where I lived. It was like an hour, and so yeah, it was cheaper, and I got seller financing. So
Hmm.
the next ones after that were closer to me, and they were more expensive, and we didn't so I was looking for a little better products, so I went with the other ones.
When
And
you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
just to add, except for the 5 family, okay, the next ones, my wife and I did this for like 7 years. The first 7 years, we'd buy a house, move into it, kind of fix it up.
Wow.
Then we'd buy another house, and then move out of the first one, rent that one out, and start doing it. We did that 7 times, and then
Nice.
when we were in the seventh house, which I'm in right now, because my wife said that's it, we're not moving again, and
Yeah.
we've been here since 1986.
That
Wow.
definitely shows the difference, I'm sure. And now at that point, you're in this active investment, and it's obviously a lot of work and time. And at
Yeah.
that point, when you were doing that, you weren't aware yet of the passive investment opportunity, right? That was a little bit after you learned about that.
Yeah, I became aware of the passive investment opportunity. You know, Probably about 7 years ago, but it took me 2 years to kind of warm up to it because at that time, okay, what I did was when I left my job, I had, my wife and I had a couple 401ks, and actually we had like three of them and a couple IRAs. We took all that money, and this is a good thing for people that want to get into passive if you have that. We rolled all that into a self-directed IRA. Okay. In our case, it was a solo 401k. That allows you to invest passively into real estate, and you don't pay any taxes until, way down the road when you retire. And so that's what I did. I left my job, and I had that, solo 401k, which is self-directed IRA. And that's how I invest in my passive deals.
And for the 401k, I just want to clarify. I don't have one. I'm not familiar, but I've heard on several podcasts that there has to be, it's very specific to be able to invest in real estate with a 401k. Is that correct?
Okay, so yeah, let me back up there. I had my wife and I had 401ks with our jobs. Okay, and then one her 401k. Uh, since we were Okay, and we had an old 401k, and we had a couple IRAs, and I had a SEP account. Any kind of retirement accounts you can transfer into a self-directed IRA. However, if you're currently in a job and you have a 401k, most likely you cannot. I could because I was over 59 and a half, and then they would allow you to do that.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Gotcha.
That's a good strategy. I don't know too much about that whole area, but my mother-in-law is super interested in starting to invest, and her nest egg is all held in her 401k. And this market's been really scaring her, so she's urging us like, "How can you help me?" And then like by her wanting to get her her funds and her retirement out of her 401k, it's forcing me to help her and learn a little bit more about self-directed Roth IRAs, which is what you had said you did. So one day I'm going to have to pick your brain about that, but it seems like what I'm learning, it's a super powerful vehicle to take that nest egg from something that's kind of in a box, put it into that self-directed IRA, and that really breaks open the box for you. That really gives you the ability to do as you please with your money. So that's really cool to know that that's kind of what got you started. I'll have to pass that info along, but it's really powerful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are various different custodians, companies that do that for you, and it was like 7 years ago. I took all my money out of the stock market because it's just too. I see it go up and down for crazy reasons, and at least with real estate, I feel that's more. It changes at a slower pace, and as long as you have rental income, the price of your real estate can go up and down a little bit, but the income is pretty much going to stay the same. Now it is affected by things, in the economy, and also like during the COVID pandemic. Some people were not able to pay their rents, but there was a lot of assistance out there, gazillion dollars of assistance, which, helped us out. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that is something too that's really interesting. Like all the with all that whole, obviously COVID was crazy and scary and huge, and most of that assistance, that money that was put out there was to help people with housing. A lot of the businesses went down, a lot of that other stuff, but there was always that assistance there for housing. So that seemed to have really helped. So the more I know, I experienced it with our properties. I'm sure you guys all did. And the more people we speak to, we're really finding that, that the worry of COVID really got balanced out because that government assistance focused on people staying in their homes. Everybody had to be home and all of that stuff. So,
Yeah, and
that's
multifamily really was the only, I think the only asset class that really benefited from that. I mean, office, as far as I know. I mean, I don't have any other asset classes, so I don't know for
yeah.
sure. But we were the only ones that I think were able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, we have personally, like my husband and I, we have some retail, we have like salons, we have some just industrial stuff as well as residential real estate. And there was a few others that everybody did end up paying, but there was definitely big pauses of time where they just couldn't do it. And we're really fortunate that our portfolio was balanced out with more residential than just the other stuff. Because while we did get paid eventually, it was definitely like, I'll pay you when I can for a lot of the things. So yeah, it was definitely scary, but it definitely catapulted us to multifamily has that sense of security that you don't appreciate until you see it.
So
For
did
sure.
you did I understand it correctly that when you entered multifamily, you entered in as a limited partner or you were an active partner?
Well, it happened very quickly. Okay, so I even remember. Funny how you remember the dates, but on yeah, on it was July 22nd. I did my first limited partnership, and then July 28th, I did the second one. And
Oh,
Wow.
when I said I did them, I looked over all the materials. I did my research. I, studied up on it. And then I wrote the check. And I went to the guy's office locally here to write the check for both of them. And I mean, I could have wired the money, but I just wrote the check and I wrote it, on my solo 401k, my self-directed IRA. I have checkbook control, so I could write the check. And then on the way home, I remember turning to my wife and saying, I'm going to be getting into this actively. I'm going to pursue this. And I had just finished a big flip, had nothing on the horizon. And I just got into the multifamily. I said, I knew the first thing I need to know, even though I've been in real estate for at that time,
Right.
37 years,
Mhm.
I knew what I didn't know. And there was a lot of gaps I had to fill in with multifamily. So I did a lot of self study. I went through 3 different programs, rapid fire, and uh, I really got the information down. I would go to like 5 meetups back then. We weren't doing Zoom; it was in person. So I went all around the New York area to meetups, and I just started, networking like crazy, and you know, really learning and absorbing as much as I possibly could. Fortunately, the person that I invested with in those first 2 properties was a wealth of knowledge. He had
nice.
been a
It's
commercial
very
real
nice.
estate broker. His partner was a same thing. So he was from Marcus and Millichap. Chap. His partner was from Cushman Wakefield. Together they formed this company. And so anytime I had questions, I would just text them. I wouldn't text them every day. I would text various people. But if I ever had a question, I knew who I could get the answer from. And so they were very helpful, and as well as many other people helped me along the way. And so that's what I do in kind now with other people. You get help from people above you, and you help people, coming up.
Paying it forward. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's what it's all about.
So, Ed, can you tell us about the first deal you did as an active investor then?
Sure. So, what I did is, like I said, July 28th is the day I guess I started, and um, I picked, um, I picked a market because I'm from New York, and, you know, New York is not the greatest market for multifamily. Uh, so I picked Atlanta. And when I say it's not the greatest market, let me just give you one reason why it's not the greatest market, or 2 reasons. One is it's not landlord friendly. I mean,
Mm.
you could take a year or 2 years to get a tenant out, and if you're smart, you'll pay them and to get out, cash for keys they call it, and I don't mean a couple $100. I mean like tens of thousands of dollars
Ooh,
to get somebody out
wow.
if you want to get them out quickly because they all know.
Yeah.
Secondly, so the first property I got was a 40 unit in Atlanta, and the taxes on that 40 unit were the same as the taxes on my home. And I don't live in a mansion. Okay. I live in a regular house. um, so I my first deal was a 40 unit. And, it's funny. Okay. I believe in goal setting and visualization and mindset and all that. And some people call it hokey pokey or whatever. I don't know. I believe in it. So I set goals and I refine my goals like all the time. And my goals for that year were to buy a 40 unit. And that's exactly
Oh,
what I bought. And I said,
beautiful.
dang, I should have made it 140 units,
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so yeah, it was a 40 unit that I bought in Atlanta. And, my wife and I do not recommend this to anybody out there. So don't do like I did here. But we moved down to the property and lived
Wow.
there for the
Wow.
duration of
Wow.
17 months. Luckily, it was only 17 months. We,
That's
we,
commitment.
the plan was only 9 months and then we were going to turn it over. But we had problems with property managers. We had to fire two of them. And then by that time, the market was, going great. And we doubled the price and we decided to sell. And it took like 5 months for it to close, but we didn't care because we were cash flowing by this time. And, and then you know, then we sold them. We came home. But
Nice.
while I was there, I got into a bunch of other deals from there.
As passive or active in the other deals you're
Active,
talking about?
active. I did. Okay, so when I went down to Atlanta, the way I did that was I said I picked Atlanta as my market. Never been there. Well, maybe I flew through there. It is a major
Yeah.
hub, so I may have flown through there, but never been there. Never set my foot outside the airport if I was at the airport. But I picked it because I looked on a map and I said, yeah, this is right in the area where I want to be. And, I did some research and, we picked Atlanta. So I called like all the brokers in Atlanta, started talking to them and, telling them what my search criteria was. And I told them, I'm going to be down there next time. I said, next time, like to kind of give them the impression that I come down there every so often,
Yeah.
and I wasn't lying because I think I did go through the airport. And so I did this a month ahead of time and I set up appointments for, uh, and then I solidified all the appointments the week before we were going down there. My wife and I went down there for 5 days, Monday through Friday, and we met with 11 different people, uh,
Wow.
breakfast and lunch. One day we had two lunches. Um, and I, and that's where I met my attorney that I still use.
Nice.
And we were going to do a deal together. I met him more as an investor than an attorney, but so I met him and I met a property manager that was really helpful to me. By every property I looked down there, I would text him and he would give me like a whole paragraph in text about that area and everything else because he was a third generation multifamily investor and property
Wow.
manager. And and I did do a limited partnership with him just to reciprocate all his help to me. So I did do that one, in December of that year. Um, so I did have three limited partnerships before I did my first, general partnership.
Nice. That definitely is you got a lot of sweat equity in that first one, that those 17 months sitting
Oh
there.
yeah, I
That's
learned
a
a lot. I learned
Yeah,
a lot.
that's a must have been a lot of that's a lot of commitment, a lot of things a lot of people probably wish they had the flexibility to go do to purchase that 40 unit, but that's awesome. I'm glad it turned around so quickly for you. And it's funny because in the meantime, you're doing this active investment, making a lot of money, but you're also seeing your passive investment still paying you at the same time, right? So that must have been really cool to see the difference. Like it's a lot of work, but it's paying off more, but you still have your active investing kind of that mailbox money, right? Just coming in while you're doing other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I am, I'm at the point now. I mean, hey, I'd much rather just be a passive investor.
Okay.
Tell you the truth. I mean, I do like the multifamily business. I love it, so I keep doing it. But you know, I wouldn't mind just being a passive investor, and I'm probably almost at that point where I could do that. But I'm going to give it a few more years and then decide.
Yeah.
So building on
That,
that mentality, like to tell
Mhm.
our listeners, like what should they look for? Because it's like coming from you, you've been so active and hands on. I mean, even living in the property. What what do you think are like the top three things a passive investor that's maybe never invested in multifamily should look for?
Okay, so well, let me just say something right before that, little lead up to that, and that is what is passive investing? And the answer may be obvious, but I think not quite obvious enough. Um,
I agree with that.
people, I think people think that if they buy a single family house or a fourplex or whatever, and they think that's passive investment, it's
Hmm.
not because there's work that goes into that. You have to find the house, you have to close on it, maybe you got to fix it up a little, you got to get a property manager, you got to oversee the property manager, who knows, maybe you even have to go over there and do some work
Hmm.
on it yourself. And maybe the first time you do that it's kind of fun and a
Right.
novelty, but that's not passive investing.
Mm-mm.
Passive
Well,
investing is is mailbox money. It's like
yep.
you don't have to do anything. You you make your investment. It's all governed by the SEC.
mhm.
There's all kinds of checks and balances there. You put your money in there. They all right. So that's passive investing.
Thank you for
So
clarifying that. That was a very good explanation of the difference. I appreciate that. I'm sure our listeners will too.
now. Now, what should people do if they want to do passive investing? Well, um, I know one guy that did it really a good way. Three years ago, or 3 years ago, I went to a kind of a real estate meetup in Aruba, uh, and it was a lot of multifamily people there. It was pretty much all multifamily people there. And I met this one guy, and he was a professional poker player.
Oh,
When I
Wow.
say professional poker player, I said, what's the biggest hand you ever had? And he
Right.
said $800,000. I said,
Wow.
wow.
Awesome.
that's
And
crazy.
then I said, are you doing multifamily or why are you here? Or, he goes, oh, no, I'm a passive investor. I'm just looking for sponsors and, operators. So the first point is don't just invest with anybody. You really got to do your due diligence. And I even recommend that you learn how to evaluate properties. You learn how to underwrite properties yourself, and don't rely on somebody, just telling you how it all works. Have a good knowledge of it, and that's one thing. If you're going to invest with passively, do some due diligence on the sponsor, on the operator. How long have they been in business? Um, you know, how many properties they have, where do they live, where are their properties, what size
Mhm.
properties, are they A class, are they D class, um, how often do you give distributions, are they short term, are they long term, um, as this is kind of a debate right now, short term, long term. For
Yeah.
active people like myself, it's better for us to do short term because we get paid if we sell the property sooner or if we, like that. But as a passive investor, I want to stay in a little bit longer. I want to stay in, you know, I want to stay in like 10 years. I want to refinance that property, get all my money back or a
Yep.
good portion of it. That's a non-taxable event because you put 100,000 or 50,000 in and you get 50,000 back, you don't pay taxes on that, right? You could take that 50,000. Okay, so you're still in the property for 5 more years
Right.
and your interest rate now is kind of infinite,
Hmm.
because you're still going to get a return based on your ownership. And um, you could take that 50,000 and put it into the next property. And so now you got two properties working on that same 50,000. And, every couple of years or 5 years, you could do that again.
That's magic.
Those are some things to look out for. Being a part of any kind of group like this, where there are people there that are going to have your interest at heart. So if
Mhm.
you're thinking about, I tell all my students and anybody I know, hey, if you're going to be making an investment with somebody and you don't know them, come and talk to me. I'll tell you what to ask, what to look for, things like that.
That's important. And I would love to just reiterate one thing that you said that I think was a big thing that like when I first learned about the multifamily investing passively, it seemed amazing to me. The fact that you invest that money, well, you could have 90 to 100% of that returned, but like you said, you're still in the deal and your return becomes infinite. So you're still getting, it's obviously probably a smaller amount of cash flow, but you got your investment back, you turn it into something else, but you're still getting this mailbox money coming in until they sell that property. So that is I think that's just such a cool thing to happen because not only are you getting your money back too, you've also gained income along the way. So you've made money on your money, you get your money back, and then you still make money on that money even though you've reinvested it. It's just such an amazing thing that like it was such an eye opener for me. And I know for all of us, it's part of the reason people don't really know and don't hear about. And that's why we wanted to start a podcast like this for people to kind of understand the power and behind it and learn how to do it safely too, as safe as possible.
One of the things about I hear that I just want to touch on about passive investing as well is that there, to me, when I hear that and I hear the descriptions that you just gave, the active investing is actually you're in the deal, you're actually you're working with the property management, you're actually actively at work in the property, making it making sure it performs and the people that you've hired to do their jobs. Yet passive, you're not doing that work, but there is an active part that you do have to be
It's
responsible, which is educating yourself. So in a sense, when I think about the definition of passive, it's only when the money, once you've done your due diligence and really have investigated everything that you just described before, the sponsor, the deal, understanding the numbers and how they all work, that part is the responsibility of the investor. So that you do have to be active and accountable to yourself on your choices.
Mhm.
With that being said, so there's the difference between passive investing and active is that once you do that work and you've made that decision, then you can kind of kick back and check in. Basically, it's just checking in and being a part of the property management when they come to you, not the property management, but the people that run the property, when the operators come to you and say, okay, we're going to have a webinar or we're going to send you out your quarterly uh, update on the property. That's about as active as you get at that point.
Yep. Yep.
a beautiful thing.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Love it. Um, in regards to being in the where you are now, Ed, in the multifamily and thinking about the transitioning into passive, if someone had a W-2 job, um, and maybe not able to, and maybe doesn't want to leave that, how would you suggest them connecting more
Good
to find
question.
out more about it? If it, sometimes the W-2 jobs, I know that Zoom is making things much more available, but how would you suggest people finding out more about deals themselves?
As far as passive investment,
Yes, yes.
probably to um, become part of a community and networking with other people to see what's out there. Go to an event. There's several events out there where you can find out about you know who the operators are. I mean, it's pretty easy to find out about the real big operators. I mean, you could actually um, you can even there's some websites that you could go on, but to find out about bigger operators like Grant Cardone, he's the
Yes.
first one that comes to mind. But uh, I like the idea of meeting people in person. So I would go to an event, and um, if you live in New York and you come by and it's the middle of the winter and you can find an event in Florida or something like that, uh,
Yep. And then you can just
there's,
write that trip off.
yeah,
What you
exactly.
doing, best?
So yeah, there's so many different Facebook groups and and Zoom weekly, monthly Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Um, you just have to tap into that. And if you want to get into it, I would say give yourself like 6 months. Um, couple, 6 months of doing investigative work. Because you worked hard for your money, you don't want to just plunk it down with the first person that you find.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if somebody is in a large group, they're usually more accountable, sort of. Not guaranteed, but um, they're less likely. I think.
There's
I
more
don't.
eyes watching. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is an SEC, Security Exchange Commission control, and for the most part, I think everybody's above board. But you know, people take liberties and maybe
Mhm.
do some things that are a little shady and stuff like that. So you want to connect with people that have a stellar record, and the best way to find anything, whether it's a handyman, a sponsor, is referrals. Okay,
Mm.
um, if I'm looking for a property manager,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to get referrals. Somebody that, or an accountant, a doctor, anything in life. It's best if you can get a referral from somebody that says, "Yeah, I've done. This guy has done, or this gal has done good by me." So check them out. Do your due diligence. But I've used them. I've worked with them and had a great experience.
Wow. Thank you, Ed. But this has been fantastic. How can somebody reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way is go to my website and you can get all the information there. And that's Gimme Shelter. I'll spell that GIMME shelterequity.com. Yes, I'm a Rolling Stones fan, so that's where that came from. If you're old enough to know the Rolling Stones and that song, that's
They're
Awesome.
they're still performing, aren't they? The Rolling Stones, or have they retired?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, the last time I saw them was in Atlanta, November 12th last year.
okay.
Uh, And when I bought tickets, Charlie was still alive. When we went to see him, he was obviously had died. And I brought, so it was me and my wife, we went there, and it was in Atlanta. So we're in New York. So, I don't think they played in New York. So we went to Atlanta, but I had properties there. And so I with me, I brought, my favorite broker and also an investor, and we had like really good seats and everything. It was fun.
Nice, nice.
That's awesome. There's nothing better than being able to turn a work trip into a play trip. When you can
Oh,
combine all
yeah.
of that, that's awesome. So fun.
Yeah. I mean, like my attorney that I mentioned that I met in Atlanta on my first trip,
Mhm.
he told me, he says the two biggest deals he ever did was on the golf course.
Oh.
So, yeah, there's a lot to be said for that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, Ed, one of the things that what we like to do on this podcast is we have a provoking thought of the day, and we have three cards that Tamara has, that you pick one from three.
Uh
Set you up.
oh. I'll take, I don't know, the one on my left.
This one?
Sure.
Okay. All right. It's like, where's the camera
Drum
at?
roll.
Yeah.
So
And speaking of drum roll,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
fun fact.
So the quote that you picked today on the card is, "You create your opportunities by asking for them," and that quote's from Patty
Ooh,
Hansen.
that's a good one. That's a good one. You create your
So we'd like
opportunities
to
by
get some
asking.
feedback about like what bubbles up and what you think of when you hear that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that definitely resonates with me
Yeah.
because if if there's something in life that you want, you got to go for it and make a plan to get it. You know, nobody's going to hand it to you. That's what it means to me. That's how it struck me.
Well, just the things you shared with us today, which we really appreciate you coming on today, is that you really did create a lot of opportunities by really asking, well, seeking out the people that knew the answers and asking them what was available and where to go and how to do things. Because it sounds like you have a great relationship with the attorney you've mentioned a handful of times, and it's how this business really comes together, is by relationships and creating those opportunities.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like to think about too, reflecting on what you were saying, how earlier that you said that you wanted to have a 40 unit, and then in hindsight you realize you asked for a 40 unit and then you got it, and then you said I should have asked for 120 or whatever the number was.
Yeah.
And it goes to show, I totally believe in the power of visualization. Despite whether it's in front of you now, is planning your future, you know how to make those minor adjustments to reach those goals, whether they are baby steps or whether you just do a deep dive and just jump right into something. But so that's how that quote resonates, and I really see it reflected in the stories that you've told in your adventures in multifamily and in real estate, and how that reflects in your life. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Hmm. I think it's definitely a good one too, to remind people too that, because I'm 100%, I love the mindset piece, visualization. Like I totally agree with all of that. But there's one thing, like you had your visualization, you visualized your 40 unit, you wrote that down, but you didn't just wait for like somebody to knock on your door and be like, hey, do you want to invest in a 40 unit? So I think that this quote is great because it reminds you that putting everything out there is awesome and it's great, and you have to have your mindset there, but nothing happens by chance, and you always need to create that opportunities like you did. So you really had the whole package of, you had that visualization, you put it out there into the universe, you said what you wanted, but you proactively put yourself out there and ask for it. So that's something I hope the viewers listen to, and remember that putting it out there is awesome, but you still got to take the steps to bring it into your life. So awesome quote.
Yeah, it is. I definitely agree. You have to have goals and you have to have things you ask for, things you want, so that you have something to pursue and to go after and to get. So yeah, I think it's a good quote.
Mm-hmm.
But well, I guess we're running out of time for today, though, Ed. So it was really good, though. We definitely enjoyed chatting with you about the differences between active and passive investing, and for some people, just passively investing may be the right option if they work another job or life is too busy and they can't devote the time and the effort that maybe you have into some of your properties. Uh, Certainly, I can't go live in another states away for months and work on something. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so we just want to say thank you, Ed, for being here. And thank you to our guests for listening to us at the roundtable today. And tune in for our next episode to get some more great info from our expert guests on all the things that you'd need to know to passively invest in multifamily real estate. And as always, you can check us out on Instagram, Facebook, watch us on YouTube, or visit our website at therealestatewomen.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hey.
everyone, for listening.
The information contained in this podcast is for educational purposes only. We are not licensed professionals and do not give investment advice, tax advice, or other professional advice. Please consult a licensed professional before making any financial decisions.